Hey Student Success, this is your video for week 2 of the semester already, so you made it through week 1. I have really enjoyed reading your introductory post in the discussion forum, as well as looking through your week 1 materials and your discussions and those things. So hopefully you're starting to get the hang of Blackboard, although I know if it's brand new to you, it may still take another week or so to get adjusted. And I don't want you to worry either if you happen to miss some of week 1 or even week 2 toward the end of the semester. I do reopen weeks 1, 2, and sometimes even week 3, depending on if I see a lot of students need that. Just because I know early on in a semester, students are still getting adjusted, still getting acclimated to using Blackboard, or just kind of making sure that they're on task with everything. And so I do reopen those weeks. So don't panic if you happen to have missed a couple things in week 1 or even week 2. Of course, I want you to get them all done while it's open, but I do reopen those later. So that's just kind of an FYI looking ahead. I start doing that in week 6, 7, and 8. So it's a few weeks away now. So just as a reminder, in week 1, I walked you through kind of how to navigate Blackboard. Right now in the Start Here section, this is where you might still kind of go to get an overview of how to work through the course, as well as to get the syllabus. And then there's a course link here as well. In the Lessons tab, here's another link to the textbook access, and then your Muddy Point, where if you had a question, kind of like raising your hand in class, as well as the Student Lounge, where you can introduce yourself to one another. I'm also going to plug again your Student Services assignment. Although this is not due until the end of our class, week 8 of our semester, please just get it done earlier than later. As I mentioned in my previous video, I had students in my first 8-week class, a whole slew of them, waited until the very end, and they only had like 1 or 2 choices, and so I don't want to say stuck with, but they may have taken a workshop that wasn't necessarily high on their list of interest or applicability. So I'm going to really recommend that you kind of look through. Again, I have the document there that walks you through what what workshops are available and at what time. They're all going to be electronic through Zoom, so you don't have to worry about going anywhere, but I would just kind of do it sooner than later. Look to see, your number 1 choice, and then maybe get a backup as well, just because you don't want to get to week 8 and only have like 1 option left. So you have until week 8, but please try to get that done the earliest you can. You'll take the workshop through Zoom, and then eventually when you're done, you'll go into Blackboard. Instead of going to courses, you'll go to something called organizations. You'll take kind of like a post-workshop survey, and you'll get your certificate through there. All right, so at this point, week 1 is finished. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at week 2. Week 2 is in chapter 4, and there's actually a little less to do this week. So we're going to take a look at chapter 4 here in just a moment, and you'll see the 2 assignments that we have associated with this. Here are the learning objectives, and then we go into our materials folder. You'll see that we have our textbook link and some slides. So I'm going to pull up the textbook link now. Chapter 4 is on listening, taking notes, and remembering. So again, if you want to navigate using this table of contents, you can scroll down and you can see, all right, are you ready for class? Are you listening? How can you take notes? So a lot of these, as I mentioned before, does contain a lot of like self-assessments. How would you rank yourself? What are some things you need to be working on? So I would really encourage you to, look through the whole chapter, maybe specifically look at the sections that you could benefit from looking more into. So there's a whole bunch on the listening section here. I'm going to go ahead and go through the kind of like the slides, the PowerPoints for this, listening, taking notes, and remembering. So some major takeaways from the chapter is, especially if you are a CCP student or you're fresh out of high school, there is a big difference between college and high school. You have to take responsibility over your learning. Time management is important. And they talk about the learning cycle in 4 different steps. So this chapter does focus on making sure you're prepared for class, not just, arriving to class, but thinking about, what do I want to get out of today's lecture? When I walk out of here, what am I supposed to know? And then there's things you want to do physically as well. Make sure that you're prepared ahead of time. Make sure that you're on time. You're not distracted during class. So this is going to go into depth with making sure that you're prepared. Listening as well. Sometimes it's difficult to listen in class in a lecture. I know I have a lot of students who say they struggle with that. So here are some tips on how to make sure that you're doing your best listening. Again, making sure that you are distraction-free. Maybe even changing where you sit. Focus on what's going on, what's being said, and not the distractions around you. And look for those signals that instructors often provide. More like talking more quickly, writing words on the board. So all those things are cues. Here's some more information about listening to lectures, taking notes, asking and answering questions, tape recording lectures if you have permission to do so. So again, chapter 4 goes through all of these kind of tips. And here are some like what to do if you feel like you can't keep up because the instructor is speaking too quickly, if there's an accent going on, so it kind of gives you some situations to think through, like what would you do in these situations? So I think that's kind of a helpful slide. Note taking, it's important to take notes. Some people may not need as many notes. Maybe they're more of a visual learner, and so they can sit in class and they can kind of take in the information through PowerPoints, or maybe their audio, they learn by listening. But if you are a note taker, if you're kind of a read-write person, it's important to know your most effective note-taking method because you do want to make sure that it's supporting your listening. It can create a study guide for you. It allows you to remember the material better later on. And so there is a section in chapter 4 that talks about kind of the most effective way to take your notes and some least effective ways and some tips on maybe trying a new note-taking method. I like in particular the Cornell method, and so that to me is a really great way to organize notes. So if you're interested in that section, you can go into chapter 4 and look at those different types of methods. And here are some other types of tips for taking notes. I have some students who try to write down every single thing an instructor says. That's not really a great way to do that because you're going to be writing the entire time. You want to make sure that you pull out the main ideas, maybe come up with a symbol system, make sure that you're labeling, have a system in place like Cornell Notes or concept mapping that's going to work for you. Review your notes as soon as you can. That way if you see gaps or you need to question something, it's fresh in your mind. Write a summary after class in your own words, let you know that you really understand the material. It also goes, what happens if you miss class? Some of this might seem common sense, but you would be surprised how often this does not happen. And then how to kind of get information from your working or short-term memory to your long-term memory. So that's what chapter 4 is over. And again, I encourage you to look through this PowerPoint and then also explore the chapter through the link. Okay, for this week, and then there's also a link in here in materials, note-taking apps, if that you think would be a good fit for you. It has a link there for that. All right, in week 2, let's go ahead and go to the assignment area. You have 2 assignments this week. How well do you listen survey? You're going to take the survey first, and it's going to help you answer the questions in the discussion forum. So you'll see that there's 2 areas. How well do you listen? This is a survey, so you'll click on that, and it's going to do like a pop-up. Yep.
Now that you have read it.
There we go. And you'll take that, you'll get your results, and you'll use those results for the forum underneath here. And you'll see there are 3 questions. How did you do? Did the results surprise you? What's your plan for improvement? Remember, for discussion forum, you simply click create thread, and then you post your original response. So again, your response is based on your results in the survey right up here, and your original response for week 2 attendance is due Wednesday, November 4th. Then you want to respond to 2 classmates by Sunday the 8th, and there's more information about that down here. The second thing you are doing this week is the chapter 4 assignment. So this is all about chapter 4, and it's specifically 4.6 inside your online text. So they kind of have this table or this information in your text as well. And this is all about what we just talked about in chapter 4, listening, note-taking, memory. So this is going to kind of make you think about what you need to do in each of these areas. How can you improve them? So think about some things you need to do to improve your listening, your note-taking, and your memory. What 2 things are you going to do to improve your listening? What 2 things are you going to do to improve your note-taking? What 2 things are you going to do to improve your memory? When do you expect to take this action? Could it be like the next time you're in a lecture class? Can it be today when you're listening to this lecture? Whenever it might be. And then how do you know you accomplished the action? Are you going to have improved test scores? Are you going to have improved note-taking? Are you going to have improved conversations? So that's what this document is for. And you can go back to the actual online text to look at these 3 sections, or you can look at the slides that I just went through. So that's what you're doing for the Chapter 4 assignment. When you do that, you'll click in here, make sure you save your document onto your desktop or wherever it is it might be. Hit Browse Your Computer. You'll find it wherever you saved it, and hit Submit. Okay, and that is what you're doing for this week. Week 2, you're reading Chapter 4 materials. You're completing the survey and completing the discussion forum. Original response by Wednesday for week 2 attendance. Respond to 2 classmates by Sunday. And then your Chapter 4 assignment is also due by Sunday. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Bye.